Let's talk about some birth prep tips that I don't know, I don't think it's really common knowledge, or a lot of birthing people are explained things to do to help get their body prepped for birth. And I before we dive in, I just really want to push the point home that this is not specific medical advice. Before you try any of this, you're going to want to check with your MD or your OBGYN and kind of get the green light to do any of this. Also, make sure that you're not on bed rest and that you are not at risk for an early delivery, because we will be going through things like perineal massage and introital stretches. And sometimes those aren't the best options for people who are at risk for early delivery or are on bed rest, or pelvic rest, I should say. So, as always, check with your medical provider to make sure that these are appropriate for you and there are no contraindications. We really always want to be safe more than anything. That being said, typically, and again, everybody's different, everybody interprets this differently. So, clear with your MD and your OBGYN. Typically, between the 16 to 20-ish week mark, it's really not the best advice for all people to lie flat on their backs. Some providers say it's okay for doing things like exercise or if it's a short period of time, but for hours, you don't want to do it. Some say they don't want you on your back at all. So before I get into trouble, please just clear with your provider about that too. So I will be saying things like, oh, well, lie on your back. And in this case, I mean, you could either lie on your back if this is not a risk to you, or you can lie on your back, but elevated, propped up on a wedge or semi-reclined or something like that. So that's what I wanted to get out there first. So today, felt like that was a novel in and of itself. Today, we're talking all about some things that you can do for birth prep, because you want a good mix of being able to engage your pelvic floor, being able to release your pelvic floor or relax your pelvic floor, in order to have an easier, more optimal birthing experience. And we're going to go over some ways to do that, coupled with some breathing and, like I said, some self stretches. So let's dive right into that. Before we jump into anything, I want you to be really clear with yourself and with your medical team on what you would like your birthing experience to look like. So I'm seeing some things that I'm not very happy with, and people are being forced to have a birthing experience that they did not want. And it has nothing to do with medical necessity or danger or risk or anything like that. It's more of like, we won't get into that. That's another topic for another day. That being said, you have every right in say as to what goes on with your birthing experience, and have a birthing experience that you want to have if you're not having things like a medical complication or there's a danger or a risk to you or your baby. So be very, very clear with what you're expecting from that birth experience with your medical providers or your birthing team, and they should be supporting you. Also, not everybody has to give birth on their backs. There are a variety of positions, so explore those as well, just in case giving birth on your back isn't the most optimal or comfortable for you. And again, that is something that you absolutely have a say in. And I don't think many birthing people understand how much of a say in their experience that they do have if they're going through a non-traumatic, normal birthing process. I hate the word normal, but I didn't know what else to throw in there. So here we are. So we are going to review first. We're going to review some breathing, and this you can do early on in pregnancy. This is actually one of the things I coach postpartum as well, because your diaphragm is one of your main muscles in your true core, and it works very, very closely in conjunction with the pelvic floor. So we want to be able to get breath into our ribs and have our rib cages expand, and get breath into our bellies and have our bellies expand. We don't want what's called predominant chest breathing, which means all of your breath work is coming from your chest. That could be kind of shallow. It's not the most efficient. And then your pelvic floor doesn't get the best TLC it needs. And same thing with your abdomen. This video is actually going to be great for you, whether you decide to have a vaginal delivery or a cesarean section, because even with a cesarean section, even though it's not technically, it's not a vaginal delivery, you still want optimal performance in that abdomen and pelvic floor and diaphragm. And you still want a good mix of flexibility and strength in the pelvic floor, even though you're not giving birth vaginally. You still have a vagina, you still have a pelvic floor, you still have a deep core. So keeping those as conditioned and as strong and as flexible as possible is going to be super, super helpful, regardless of how you decide to give birth. So, that being said, let's review the breathing. Now, breathwork can be done in a variety of positions. It might be more difficult depending upon the position you choose. I'm going to do sitting because it's just easy. This is where the camera is, but please feel free to try all of these moves in a variety of positions. So from the least difficult, the least challenging, through the more challenging, it goes lying on your side. And if you do choose this option, I usually say like switch sides just so that in case there's a compensation, at least you're evening them out. Try that. So it's lying on your side, lying on your back, sitting up, and standing is the last one. So pick your favorite position and we are going to start. So you're going to have one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, which you can't see on mine, but it's there, I promise. And this hand should stay relatively quiet. You might feel some excursion, but not much. Most of it is going to be coming into the hand that's on your belly. And you should also feel your ribs here expand outward. So if you want, for shits and giggles, you could even have your hands on your ribs for some of these breaths, and some breaths, especially in the initial part, one hand on the chest, one hand on the abdomen. This is your program, so you could do whatever you want. Isn't that great? So we're going to start here. So what I want you to do is you're going to inhale and fill your belly up with air as if it's kind of like pooching, not pooching, but like you're filling a balloon. Okay. Inhale, fill the belly up with air. Exhale and let the air out through your mouth. So notice my mouth. We're going to practice what's called purse-lipped breathing, which means it's kind of like you're blowing the candles out. So your mouth is like this. Okay, so we're going to try that again. So inhale, fill the belly up with air. Exhale all the air out. And now you're going to try, we're going to do 5 more together. I'll just coach you through it. Inhale, fill the belly up with air. Exhale, letting all of the air out. Inhale, fill the belly up with air. Exhale, letting all of the air out. Inhale, fill the belly up with air. Exhaling, letting all of the air out. Inhale, fill the belly up with air. Let the ribs expand. Exhale, letting all of the air out. Last one. Inhale, fill the belly up with air. Let the ribs expand. And exhale, letting all of the air out. That is your basic breathing pattern. So you, by all means, can practice this as much as you want. I usually do about 10 to 15 breath cycles in a variety of positions. So that's step 1. The next step is we're going to couple that with the pelvic floor. So let's review really quickly what I mean when I say pelvic floor contraction. This is what we think of when we hear the word Kegel. When you contract your pelvic floor, you should be feeling tightness or like a tightening up from your anus all the way through your clitoral area. It's kind of like an up and in, like everything sucks up and in. They say it's like sucking up something through a straw. If you had a straw in your vaginal opening, I don't know where people come up with this shit, but it makes sense. The other side of the coin is you want to be mindful of anything that might be clenching. So you want your jaw relaxed. Your shoulders shouldn't be hiking. You shouldn't be sucking your stomach in. Your thighs aren't like squeezing together. Your butt's not clenched. Your feet aren't pointed or up. Everything's super relaxed. Just the pelvic floor is working here. So that's a contraction. Up and in is a pelvic floor contraction. When I say pelvic floor relaxation, it's kind of like a down and out, like you're envisioning blowing bubbles through the straw that's in your vagina. Very, very gentle. You kind of picture like your vaginal opening having like a slight excursion. This is not bearing down or pushing. It's way less than that. So you might not even feel anything, but it should come to like a resting, relaxed state. Somebody said once it was like, think of a jellyfish slightly blooming. And people make fun of me for using it all the time, but it really stuck with me because I could see the visual. That's kind of what the relaxation is like. So, like a jellyfish blooming. So, we are going to couple that with breath work. So, what you're going to do is you're going to inhale, fill the belly up with air, expand your ribs, relax the pelvic floor. And on the exhale, as you let the air out, you're going to contract the pelvic floor slightly. So you're not sucking for dear life. This is a very slight contraction. You should feel it through that whole anal through clitoral area, like I explained before. This might be difficult for you in sitting. If you're trying to Kegel in sitting and your pelvic floor is not the strongest or it's on the tighter side, you're counteracting gravity. So this might be difficult. So try lying on your side to get the sensation. Okay. So I'm going to talk you through 5 breaths of these. So get in a comfortable position and let's start. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, expand your ribs, relax your pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, expand your ribs, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, expand your ribs, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Last one. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Again, this is something I usually say like 10 to 15 breath cycles in a variety of positions. The coordination, and that's once per day or as often as you want per day, really, but at least once a day. And the coordination might not be the best. You might actually be cursing me out right now because you're like, I'm just not getting it. But trust me, it will come with time. Just keep acting on it. This is difficult. Most people have pelvic floor issues like leaking or pain with sex or pain with tampon insertion and everything in between because they have this pressure regulation issue. They don't have the best coordination. Their pelvic floor is not performing the best because we're never taught how to use it other than doing a bazillion Kegels, which we all know by now is a load of garbage. So getting this coordination down is going to take some time, especially if you've lived like 3 decades and never learned how to do this. You know what I mean? So just like you would never expect, like once a cast comes off your ankle after you broke it, you would never expect to run a marathon next week. Same thing with your pelvic floor. So just keep at it. And we are going to get into the next thing short. The next things we are going to review are perineal massage and introital stretching. So typically these are done around the 34-week mark. Again, check with your MD or your OBGYN to make sure that you're okay for I was going to say body work, but like self-massage, I guess you can say. And what this does, it helps remove some of the restriction if there is any in the superficial pelvic floor muscles. So nothing deep. This is all like stuff that lives pretty close to the surface to kind of encourage some flexibility and relaxation. And if you want to get fancy, you could do your relaxation breathing with relaxing the pelvic floor on the inhale as you do this. So let's take the model out here. And this you can do yourself. You can have a partner help you if you want to. Make sure your hands are clean. Please wash your hands. Have your partner wash their hands before you try any of this. So the first thing, this is the perineum here, aka the taint. And what you can do is you are going to work from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock and the area between, and then 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And what you can do is just gentle massaging around here, around the outer labia. Down here, you can do little circles if you want. You're going to come up and around this way and really just massaging that layer. You can do the small circles. You could pull the tissue here in directions to kind of help it stretch. Make sure you're relaxed during this. If you're kind of like gripping and your legs aren't relaxed and nothing's relaxed, this is not going to be doing you anything. It's not going to hurt you probably, but it's also not going to do anything for you. So this should be very, very relaxing. You should be in a relaxed state. The other thing you can do is what's called introital stretching. So you can take a finger or a thumb. You don't have to insert it very far. Oh, I was in the wrong, I was at the wrong spot. So you can insert it just like really to there. So like just like between like halfway to the first knuckle, and same area between 3 and 6 and 6 and 9. You're just going to do gentle pulling in all directions to help stretch it out. You can like hook your finger in there and pull just to restore some flexibility, because again, like when we're giving birth, we want to have, even when we're not giving birth, in general, our pelvic floors should have some flexibility and strength to them, just like any other muscle in our body. It's just a little bit weird for some of us because we're never taught about this, and we're like, we have muscles where? And yes, we absolutely have muscles inside of us that also need some TLC. So usually they say like 3 to 4 times a week to do these massages for 5 to 10 minutes. And yeah, that's the introital stretch and the perineal massage. The other thing we really want to be mindful of also is that we want good movement, good movement of our pelvic inlet. So the baby coming down, and our pelvic outlet. So when the baby comes out, if you are having a cesarean, it's not a bad idea to do some of these too, just because you get some hip mobility work in there. And again, like everybody needs some pelvic floor TLC and even hip TLC as well, especially if you are having a baby. So these will be good for you too. But for those of you having a vaginal delivery, the baby you want to be able to have the baby come down into the pelvic inlet, and then he or she, I should say, comes out of the pelvic outlet. So for the inlet expansion, I'm going to show you on a physio ball, just because that's where I happen to be sitting. So inlet, anything, I never get this right. Anything with your legs coming out, so external rotation of the hip, you want to practice that. You can do this sitting. So you're really turning your leg out this way, okay? You can even just sit like this, have your legs out, and then bring them back in. Out and in. It actually is pretty nice on the physio ball. So if you have a ball, by all means. And then if you want to be fancy, you can couple your breathing with this. So it's going to be inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, let your legs fall to the side. Inhale, relax the pelvic floor on the way back to start. Okay, so you could do, again, 10 to 15 of these. It's not a bad idea. If you cannot get the pelvic floor relaxation, do not worry. Don't worry, just make sure you're breathing and you're not holding your breath. The other way is probably not going to work on the physio wall. Actually, no, it will. So the other way, we want the outlet to expand. So the way that happens is your hips internally rotate. Now, I caution, if you've had a hip surgery before, Clear this with your MD because sometimes internal rotation is contraindicated, just to be safe again. So to get that outlet, so when the baby comes out, bringing your legs together, or your knees together, I should say, and then coming back up. And if we couple it with the breath, it's inhale here, exhale, bringing inside, inhale, coming back to start. And again, you can couple with this with the pelvic floor if you would like. You don't have to. And then bring it up. So this is really working on hip mobility. So we have external rotation for the inlet to open up, internal rotation for the outlet to open up. Okay. The next thing, I'm going to show you a couple of stretches that I really like. And these are what's called static stretches. So you're going to assume the position and then you can practice your breathing. This one, I do want you to do the breathing coupled with the pelvic floor contraction relaxation. The first one we have is Happy Baby, which I love because it's a great pelvic opener. It's really, really beneficial to relaxing the pelvic floor muscles. So meet me down here. This one, I always get the camera angle weird. Okay. So this one, here we go. Okay. You're going to bring your legs up and have your hands on your feet. Everything should be relaxed here. So see how my toes were like this and then I relax them? Everything's relaxed, especially your shoulders. A lot of people will hike here. Bring them down. Okay? Jaw relaxed. If this is uncomfortable and you're like, there's no way in hell I'm getting there, you're going to have your arms here and let that fall out. So in this position, we're going to practice our breath with our pelvic floor. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Try that again. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. One more. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. And exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. I love this one. So good. And then another stretch you can do is child's pose. This one, again, you're going to couple with your breathing and pelvic floor relaxation, contraction. So here, if you're good here, if your seat doesn't reach your foot like mine, you can absolutely wedge a yoga block in there to get some more relaxation as you come into your child's pose. And then if your belly is just not letting you get there, having a nice pillow prop is always a benefit. An option. Listen to my words. And same thing here. So we are going to inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor. And exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. Inhale, fill the belly up with air, relax the pelvic floor, expand your rib cage. Exhale, letting all of the air out, contracting the pelvic floor slightly. And that's it. And this position, we're also going to aim for 10 to 15 breaths. So, I mean, you don't have to do this every day if that's just not in the cards. 3 days a week is fine. But if you do want to do them every day, the great thing with these exercises is they're gentle enough to be able to be done every day if you feel good doing them. Nothing should be painful. Nothing should be sending any tingling, numbness anywhere. Your breathing should be efficient. So you might want to start out with the breath work first, coupled with the pelvic floor. And then once that's pretty comfortable for you, then you can try these stretches as well. So I hope you learned something today. Leave comments below. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions.